Hello, my name is Kedar and you're watching rptv News. In 2017, rptv launched the first in a series of videos called Regent Park's The Past, the Present, and the Future. We also interviewed Regent Park residents to find out what life was like in the past. We asked them about what life is like for them in the present. And finally, we explored their hopes and visions for the future. 7 years have passed since the first episode, and much has changed, though some things still stayed the same. New buildings have risen, more people have moved in, and now phases 4 and 5 are already underway. At rptv, we're excited to revisit Regent Park's past, present, and future with a new series of interviews. Regent Park remains a vibrant place where many newcomers come to when they first arrive, and where others have put down roots and call home. The revitalization has brought many changes, attracting many residents who also see the benefits of this neighborhood. And now, with all this in mind, let's go meet some of our Regent Parkers. Hi, my name is Kedar, and you're watching rptv. Welcome back to Regent Park, past, present, and future, where we explore the stories of the people who have shaped this community and continue to define its future. Regent Park has always been a place where civic engagement isn't a choice, it's a necessity. From housing activism to youth mentorship, Regent Parkers have had to be self-reliant, community-driven, and always ready to lift each other up. One person who embodies this spirit is Kevin Jeffers, a Regent Park native. Kevin has spent the 2 decades coaching basketball and mentoring youth, using sports as a tool for leadership, empowerment, and community building. Today, we sit down with him to talk about how basketball is more than just a game. It's a form of civic engagement, a way of life, and the blueprint for the future of Regent Park. We begin by asking Kevin about his own journey growing up in Regent Park and how those experiences shaped his commitment to working with marginalized youth.
Hi, my name is Kevin Jeffers. I migrated here from Trinidad. I've been a resident of Regent Park for over 35 years. I'm an avid supporter of youth and youth activities. I've also been a basketball coach for 35 years plus, and I'm happy here to share my story. So growing up in Regent Park was a fantastic experience. It was very communal. The phrase, "it takes a village," really resonated with me. Not only my brother's friends or my uncle's friends, it was also the youth mentors and the youth leaders that were also very supportive of me. And that's what made me want to become a youth worker, because they were in my corner, they had my support, and I saw the impact that it had on lives and it had on my life. So I decided to bring a part of me to that type of environment and share a piece of me with the other youth that are in need. Yeah, there's been many challenges that we have to overcome. The automatic stigma of being from Regent Park and the negative atonement that came with it. We just had to fight through that and let people understand that what you hear and what you see is not really what represents this community. This community is about love and cherish and people, cared about each other. Of course, there was some incidents that, put a bad mark on this community and that kind of stuff, but that didn't define who we are as a people. And that personally shaped who I was. I personally never went to school in this community. I went to school outside of this community. And for me, it was the best of both worlds. I had the quote unquote Regent Park upbringing and education, as well as the outside education as well. So when my friends would talk about, their trips and their weekend plans and that kind of stuff, they didn't have the sense of love and community building that we had. You know what I mean? They were very isolated and they did things as in isolation, whereas in Regent Park, it was communal. And I realized that was missing from their lives. And I was so happy that I had that a part of my life. That empowered me to become who I am today and ensure that, it's about community first.
Basketball as a vehicle for youth empowerment. For many young people in Regent Park, basketball is more than just a sport. It's an opportunity, an escape, and a path to something greater. But how exactly does the game help you navigate the challenges they face? And what does it take to turn a game into a life-changing experience? Kevin shares his perspectives on the power of basketball to transform lives.
So for me, basketball, has major impact on young people, and not only basketball, but any type of outlet. For me, it was basketball. That was the draw. And it was a way to bring youth into the community or into the facility and with a common understanding and a common goal. They really enjoyed it. They really wanted to be a part of the basketball team. They really wanted to get better and work on their game and that kind of stuff. And for those 2 hours or 3 hours that I was with them, they weren't outside doing something negative. They weren't outside being caught up in any of the drama or the stigma that this community had. So for that time being, I was very committed to these young people and they were committed to me. And I think that, being there and having that outlet is very important for young people. It's not just about, challenging life by yourself. You're able to challenge life with a group of people that are common-minded, you know what I mean? So whether it's basketball, whether it's arts, whether it's sport, any type of other sport or music or whatever is your draw, make sure that you give your passion to that draw because there's other people that have that same passion and it's going to fuel you. So there's a young man that, he grew up in Jane and Finch actually. And this is the story about how, basketball, was able to transform a young person's life. So although I'm from Regent Park, because of who I am, and my coaching ability, I was able to go to any community and I was known as coach. So for me, that's a very personal thing. Like I'm able to go to any community, Rexdale, Regent Park, St. Jamestown, Jane and Finch, no matter where it was. And outside of the basketball world, these communities would clash. But inside the basketball world, I was known as coach. And while I was there, it's called the Golden Pass. I guess I had the Golden Pass. So I had a young man from Jane and Finch area, and he was very, very talented in basketball, but he never had the push or the drive, or nobody held him accountable. And when he came to me, I was able to hold him accountable in terms of what he was doing in school, what he was doing outside of school, what he was doing in the community, and that type of stuff. And he understood immediately that the impact that I wanted to bring to his life meant something. Meeting him, he thought he would just play basketball and then end up as a mechanic working in his dad's shop. And then we were able, me and my other coaches were able to open up his eyes to say, there's more to it, right? Use basketball as his vehicle and it can help you get to where you want to get to. And then he started to believe it. And then more and more, he received a lot of love and that type of stuff. And then people started to recognize his talent and ability. He ended up receiving a scholarship, and he's now a Division I player at Long Island University. That's Jamal Fuller.
The role of community recreation centers in social change. While basketball provides opportunity, spaces like the John Innes Community Recreation Center make that opportunity possible. These centers aren't just buildings, they're hubs for mentorship, leadership, and social change. But what happens when these spaces don't get the support they need? Kevin reflects on the importance of community recreation centers and the barriers they face in serving marginalized youth.
Yeah, so the recreation centers play a major role in terms of having a safe place for young people to congregate. So it's not just, a place where they come and they play basketball and then they leave and that place up. It was a home. It was a home away from home. That this is where they were able to be themselves. They had structure. They had accountability. They had, a place to be free and to be who they were and that type of stuff. The staff were very receptive to that. And over at John Ennis, we ensured that, that type of environment was necessary for the growth of young people. So it wasn't just, these are the rules and you got to follow the rules and that kind of stuff. We understand they're young people, and we were able to work and navigate through that process with the young people. And they ended up now, conforming to the rules and actually making the rules a part of who they were. At John Ennis, our doors were always open, and we had an open environment for the young people, and they're very receptive of that. And that actually built who they were and actually built their character. And because of their character, it was able to, attribute to a lot of their successes in life. Recreation centers play a major part in the young people, and it's important that we have an understanding that, we also have a role in shaping young people's lives, not just we're here for this little 2-hour shift. It's more than that. You actually become these young people's uncles, their brothers, their confidant, and they actually share part of their lives with you. So be receptive to that and understand that being in the recreation center, it actually has a major part of shaping young people's lives. So some of the systemic barriers that recreation centers face in supporting young people is, obviously money, right? The budget. As a youth worker and as a young advocate of young people, you wish you could just have, youth programming all the time and feed them every time and bring them to different plays and different operas and that type of stuff and show them a different part of life. But we can't do that. We have to work within the confines of a budget system and stuff like that. And although it sounds great on paper, and although there's different avenues and grants and that type of stuff, you're held back because you're not able to work within those confines, and you're not able to apply for every grant and that type of stuff. Working with the City of Toronto is, there's different partnership offices and different avenues that you have to understand and go through in order to provide programming. And it's not just about one aspect of the community center. We service older adults, preschool, adults as well, and it's not just about basketball. It's about all sports, all recreation, and that type of stuff. So although you want to make it just a youth hub and that type of stuff, there's no community center that's built just for that purpose and then focuses just on one aspect of a young person's life. It's more than just that. So I think budget is a definite impact on that. I think freedom to work within the confines of an organization is something that you have to navigate through, and it's not just easy to say check the box and we're able to run our programs. There's different avenues and different hoops that you have to follow in order to get a successful program off the ground.
Mentorship as a pathway to civic engagement. Basketball may start on the court, but the lessons go far beyond the game. For Kevin, coaching is as much about mentorship as it is about skill development. So how does he help young people see themselves as future leaders? And how does mentorship inspire youth to give back to their own communities? Kevin explains how civic engagement begins with guidance and opportunity.
How I balance coaching and being a mentor and providing future opportunities for young people, I'm the most realist person out there. I don't sugarcoat anything. So whether they're making a mistake on the basketball court, I'm going to call them out on it. Whether they're making a mistake in life, I'm going to call them out on it. But I'm not just going to call them out on it and leave it at that. I'm actually going to coach them and help them. Okay, this is the avenue that you decided to take. These are the consequences. And this is what's going to happen. Like I tell all the young people, you're free to make any choice you want. You're just not free to make the consequences. The consequences come with your choice and your actions. So once they have an understanding of that, it's something that we just work through. So yes, I don't go for the best of the best. I work with some of the toughest of the tough. So I'm gonna allow you to make a mistake. I'm gonna allow you to make proper choices, and then we're gonna come in and discuss those mistakes and those choices and how can we do better. So it's a constant coaching. It's a constant mentoring. It's a constant discussion. My door is always open, whether you're 13 to whether you're 35. I pride myself on being invited to many weddings. And my young people, they grow up and they want me to be a part of their life, not just through the basketball season, but a lifelong journey. So I always tell that to any young person that's coming up and stuff like that is, we're in this for the long haul. We're not just in this for a short stint. Whether you need me to write a resume, whether you need me to be a reference for a job, I'm going to be there. But if you need me to be there and have an impact on your life all the way down the road, I'm also going to be there for that as well.
Breaking barriers. Basketball as a tool for inclusion. In a city as diverse as Toronto, the basketball court can be one of the most inclusive spaces. It's where differences fade, where teamwork takes priority, and where social and racial barriers can be broken down. But how does sport create that sense of belonging? Kevin shares what he's learned about the power of basketball to unite communities.
Yeah, so basketball creates a sense of belonging for youth just because it's, like I said, it's a vehicle for them to showcase their talents and their abilities. Not everyone is going to be book smart. Not everyone can be, artistic and that type of stuff. But for some young people, they have a passion and they have a drive. And what we can do is harness that passion and that drive. So some people, they start out where they could be a mediocre basketball player, but through time and hard work and effort, they become a great basketball player. And I'm known for that. I'm known for training young people and keeping them committed. So it's not just what we do on the basketball court. It's the running of the hills at Riverdale. It's the lifting weights. It's the going for the jogs and the runs and that type of stuff and what you put in your body and that kind of stuff. It's that holistic approach that we attack. And so because of that, basketball helps them understand that, there's other things in life that you can utilize. So you can break down the barriers and you can apply what you learned on the basketball court and in life, and that translates to what you can do in life as well, right? If you put time and effort into your grades will improve. If you put time and effort into your relationship will get better. It's the same thing in the basketball court. If you put time and effort on the drills, your skills will get better. So that understanding is one of the major things that I tell my young people. So the power of sport to break down social and racial barriers is immense. It's because it brings everyone together. So at the end of the day, like I spoke about earlier, because of my ability to coach basketball, and I'm known for that, I can go into any community and I'm known for, hey, there's coach. And nobody's going to look at me and say that I'm there for anything else and try to, be an aggressor to me, that type of stuff. So the same thing with basketball. Anywhere you go, it's a common goal, right? So as a team, you become a team, and you're out there to become a common goal, and it brings everybody together and it connects everybody. It gets hostile. It does get hostile. It does get intense at times. It builds a sense of pride in terms of your community that you represent, in terms of the team or the school that you represent. But at the end of the day, people understand that it's just basketball. Parents can yell at each other, parents can yell at referees, and players can get into an argument. At the end of the day, we all walk away. It's because it's all about a game, and the games are played for fun. So, we utilize basketball to not only enhance the lives of young people, but help them understand that, it can improve the life of everyone around you because you're bringing them together for a common goal.
Building a legacy and the future of youth leadership. For decades, Kevin has dedicated his life to building up young people, not just as athletes, but as leaders, mentors, and engaged citizens. But what does he hope his legacy will be? And looking forward, what does he envision for the next generation of community leaders in Regent Park and beyond? As we wrap up our conversation, Kevin shares his hopes for the future of youth empowerment in Toronto.
The legacy I hope is to make sure that I just want to be able to pass down what I've been doing. So like I mentioned before, the reason why I got into youth work and stuff like that is because I always had someone in my corner and someone was always there for me to talk to. I come from a 2-parent household that's very rare in Regent Park as well. But there's not every time you can run to your mom and dad with an issue, but there's always a time where you had someone else in your corner to talk to as well. So I always want to make sure that I'm there for these young people. My door is always open, like I mentioned. So if I can pass on that legacy, and that's the first thing I want to teach young people is be there. You be there. If you have the attention of young people and you have their ear, the worst thing you can ever do is not be there for them when they need you, right? It's a sacrifice. It's a commitment. It's not the easiest thing to do, but if your passion is there and you really care about the young people, which most people do, is you will be there for them in the long run. And that's so important. So if I could pass on the legacy for me is, if you're involved with young people, please make sure that you're there and you're always there and you can be a constant in their life. How I envision the future of youth sport and youth sport in Toronto is, yeah, it's a tough one. My vision isn't just, solely based off of Regent Park or John Ennis or Moss Park or that type of stuff. My vision is based off of what we can bring to the world. And I think that, if everyone has an understanding that they are young people, they are going to make mistakes, but they just need an outlet. They just need a voice. They just need to be heard. And in that process, we have an understanding that although you want to give them a voice and you want to listen to them, you want to be heard, you also hold them accountable. That's going to fuel them for life, right? It's one of those things where, you give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day. You teach him how to fish, he can eat for life, right? So it's that type of mentality. It's not just, don't feel pity on a young person because of where his background is or where he's coming from. Don't take pity on a young person because of the stigma that they've been, put under. It's how do we uplift them from that stigma? It's how do we ensure that that doesn't define who they are? For me, young people, are pigeonholed or they're put into a box, and that's sometimes people's perception of them. It's how do we empower them to break out of that perception? And I think that we can utilize things like sports to help them not only define who they are, but give them a voice and allow them to become who they are naturally. For me, I have a young player, my son, who's involved in basketball right now real heavily, and everyone looks at him and sees his talent on the court and that type of stuff. But what they don't see is his commitment to schoolwork, his commitment to being a good brother and that type of stuff, and being a good son and being a good person. Those are the things that we hold him most accountable for. Not the fact that he missed a foul shot or he missed a 3-pointer or that he lost the game. We hold him more accountable for the off-court stuff. And I think that we have to have an understanding that it's not just when the whistle's done or the shot clock's over, the game's not over for these young people. Their game of life is still continuing. So we want to make sure that they're prepared and they're ready for not just the game of basketball or in any type of sport, but the game of life.
Addressing systemic challenges and public policy. Despite the hard work of mentors like Kevin, marginalized youth continue to face systemic barriers, whether it's lack of access to resources, economic struggles, or social inclusion. So what are the biggest challenges youth are up against today? And what changes need to happen at a policy level to truly make a difference? Kevin weighs in on the structural changes needed to better support underserved communities.
So some of the more systemic challenges that young people are facing right now is opportunity. The constant no, the constant you're not ready, the constant you don't fit into this, we're going to go a different avenue, you don't fit into this peg type of mentality that they get turned down to, right? It's very important that young people can understand that, opportunity can present itself, but it doesn't mean that it's guaranteed. So it's how do you bounce back from that, right? So it's that understanding that, although the barriers will come and the barriers are going to be put into your face, it's not just, okay, there's a barrier, I got shut down, I'm done, I'm packing it up, I'm going to quit. No, it's how do you challenge that barrier? Are you going to avoid it? Those who avoid that barrier, they're going to run into another barrier. Those who learn how to run through that barrier or challenge it or overcome it, they're going to be ready and be ready to face the world. So for young people, it's, although we have a lot of systemic barriers that are be placed on you, and you're, for lack of a better term, you're held back because you're not allowed to be free, and you're not allowed, and people don't understand who you are. You got to give them time to adjust, right? And you have to have an understanding that although the barriers are in your face, it's what you do to overcome those barriers. The changes I'd like to see in public policy to better serve youth in marginalized communities would be, I know a lot of people will say that, communities such as Regent Park are well served, and there's a lot of organizations that do service, and it's true. It is true. However, there has to be more in terms of a youth focus. We shouldn't be fighting for young people. We shouldn't be fighting for numbers. We shouldn't be fighting for, grants and that type of stuff, and who gets awarded this grant and that type of stuff. It shouldn't be, well, this amount of money is designated for this community and that type of stuff. It should be, this amount of money is dedicated for the betterment of the young people's lives. And whether it's the money's going to this organization or that organization or whatever, we all serve the same youth, right? And that's one of the toughest things that people don't understand. For example, the community center serves a purpose. It's sports and recreation, and it's social. Focus serves a purpose. It's artistic, it's the arts and that type of stuff. Dixon Hall serves a purpose. All these organizations serve a purpose, and they all have different agendas and different mindsets in terms of how they're going to service this community. But at the end of the day, one youth can be able to go to 1, 2, or 3 of the 4 buildings in one aspect, in one day, in 1 week. They can use all the services. So instead of fighting for these numbers and that type of stuff, I wish there's a way that we can break down the barriers to say that, it's not a numbers-based game. It can't be. It has to be an empowerment piece. It has to be, understanding that our young people, they need more than just, to meet these numbers, to meet these targets, to meet these, because a lot of programs, a lot of these grants, or a lot of these programs that are startups, that's what they just are startup. And sometimes they're so successful and then they get taken away. Whereas, we need to keep putting in the money that, although it's a startup, it's successful. Let's find ways to keep it going. Let's not try to reinvent the wheel and say, okay, well, you got money for that last year, we're taking a different avenue. So then now the whole focus of the organization has to change, because they have to figure out, well, how do we get, another grant to sustain these young people? We're not talking about money. We're not talking about numbers. We're talking about the lives of young people. So if something's successful, let's run with it. Let's keep going. Let's have a trickle down effect. I was, walking through this, the site here, and I saw one of the programs that we started, a mural project that we started, and it's on the wall there. And it was such a great program. We gave young people skills. They were able to earn some money, and they beautify the neighborhood and that type of stuff. To see a program like that stop, it's disheartening. You know what I mean? Because it checked off so many boxes. But at the end of the day, that money ran out, and they took a different focus, and now they're on to a different mindset of, how to better serve this community. That's a win. You talk to any young person in this, what do they want? They always want money. They always want food, and they always want to be in an environment where they feel appreciated and that type of stuff. And when we build that and we have it going, I really wish that we can sustain that type of programming. instead of cut it short. You know what I mean? I understand that the government has their role, and I understand grants have their role, and I understand that policy has to be driven. But if I could, wave a magic wand or that type of stuff and say, let's remove all that bureaucratic stuff and just ensure that the lives of young people are enhanced.
We asked Coach Jeffers if there was anything else he wanted to add.
Yeah, so for me personally, I just think that dealing with young people is not the easiest thing, right? Dealing with young people, you're going to have your good days and your bad days. You're going to deal with young people. You're going to have amazing days. But we have to understand that you showing up the next day is what matters and is what counts. And the young people seeing you be there for them is what matters and what counts. It's very easy to see a young person and they're not listening and then kick them out of a program and then walk away from them. It's so easy to do that. And then for lack of better terms, you write that young person off. You're done with them, right? Young people see that, right? But for me, one of the toughest things that I've had to do and to adjust with was being there, no matter whether I wanted to or not. Meaning, I had a difficult young person and they were having a bad day for whatever reason, and I can't just shun them out or shut the door on them, right? Because the moment we do that is the moment that you may have lost that young person for forever. So for anybody that wants to be involved in working with young people and working with youth, you just have to have an understanding that there's going to be good times, there's going to be bad times, but the most important thing is you be there for them. So yeah, Regent Park, the past, present, and the future. I think that, as I alluded to earlier, is in the past, it was very communal. Everybody knew, everyone knew who your mother was, everyone knew who your father was. You couldn't walk down the street and do something without someone holding you accountable. And you couldn't go back and tell your mother that you were held accountable because now you're going to get in trouble twice. So it was that type of vibe. It was that type of community atmosphere. It was that type of, village to raise a young person. I think in the present time, with all the construction and the movement of people and the promising of we'll take you out of here and we'll bring you back and that type of stuff, it's removed that essence of community. It's removed the essence of, family support and that type of stuff. It's still there, and whenever there's like a community event or that type of stuff, and it brings back all the old people come back to the community and sustain that vibe is still there. But like I said, it brings them back. They're not living here anymore. They come back to the community event and stuff like that. So I think presently we have to find a way to bring that. It takes a village approach. It's very difficult when you have mixed income. It's very difficult when the condo owners are here and the TCHC residents are there. It's very different because their mindsets are not on the same wavelength and stuff like that, right? So the future Regent Park needs to have an understanding that regardless of your income, it shouldn't define who you represent in this community. The community should represent who you are. And yes, you live here, but please don't just live here, be a part of the community. So when there is a community event, come on out, hang out with them, support. When you do see a young person, don't just, scurry away. Ask them how their day was. Ask them what's going on. Ask them, what's going on or with their lives and that type of stuff, especially if you're neighbors, right? So we can't just be, for lack of better terms, a shopping center where you come, you go, you get what you want and you leave, right? This Regent Park should never be like that. It was never envisioned to be like that. And it wasn't like that when I was growing up. You came and you enjoyed. You shared each other's food. You shared each other's lives. You cared for one another. When someone passed away, you were there in support of the family and that type of stuff. When you heard of a shooting, you prayed that it wasn't anybody that you knew and that type of stuff. So it's not a community where it's a revolving door where you just come and go, and then no, this is a community where you come and you stay, and you give a part of yourself to this community.
The future of Regent Park. And finally, we asked Kevin for his views on Regent Park, the revitalization, and the past, present, and future.
Revitalization, for me, I always alluded to, it's a tough question, I won't lie, but I always alluded to someone who gets work done on their face, a facelift, for example. You change the outer appearance. The outer appearance looks better to you. You haven't changed what's inside. So revitalization is great. It's a great facelift. The buildings look better, and it's an improvement, and structurally it looks better, and that type of stuff. You haven't tackled the barriers that are within this community. You haven't tackled, the poverty and the homelessness and the drug use and all that. So it's still, although you dressed it up and you made it look good, you can't walk around with shutters. That part of the community is still there. I think that revitalization should come with some internal fixings, some internal work, and to better this community, it has to start from the inside and work its way out. Beautifying the neighborhood and making it look good and building these nice high rises and get rid of all the parking and that kind of stuff, because to build these nice buildings is one thing. But what are we doing for the residents that need the help? What are we doing for the literacy problems? What are we doing for the nutrition problems? What are we doing for the homelessness and the drug abuse and that type of stuff? Are we just saying that, because the place looks better, those type of things are going to go away? They're not going to go away. The only time they're going to go away is if we invest in it. So the investment was to make the community better. The investment should be to make the community better as a whole, not just on the outside, but on the inside as well.
Don't forget to like, share, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and visit us on all our social media platforms. Please visit our website for more information.